book Ner Mitzvah, the Mitzvah Candle, translated into English. I suggest highly, strongly. If you read the book, it's very good. It adds a lot of points that we're not going to be able to get to. Also based on the Rav Druckmann, Zatzal, a shiur that he gave on Hanukkah, I heard many years ago. The Gemara in Shabbat, page 21b, says, Mitzvah ner ishu beito. The mitzvah of Hanukkah is upon the person and he and his household. It's a household commandment. Not everyone individually, but the household. Today we have the extra we do that each one lights, but the main mitzvah is upon the house. It's connected to the house. As opposed to, we'll see a few differences distinct from Purim, also a holiday from the Rabbanan, added on after the Torah was given. We have the reading of Megillat Esther is upon each person individually. Each one has to hear and read the Megillah. Also, a distinction between the two, Chanukah and Purim, that in Chanukah, there is no commandment to have a festive meal. You can eat your popcorn, but on Chanukah, there's no commandment. It says if you say praise to God and commemorate the miracles, then you can turn it into what's called a Sudat Mitzvah. In other words, it's a positive thing. But there's no obligation, as opposed to Purim, where the part of the commandment is
you don't have to have a sukkah.
No, you don't have to even have the dreidel. No.
I have my one, and that's, I'm
Okay. It's not so healthy, but anyway, no, it's but there's no obligation. The Yam Shel Shlomo, the Machon says how if you do it for that, to pronounce the miracle, etc., then indeed it becomes a commandment. How do you say, a mitzvah, an additional commandment, additional extra positive value. But there's no obligation. As opposed to Purim, that's the mitzvah, part of the mitzvah, the reading of the Megillah, and the mishteh, the eating and the drinking. The question is why? Why this difference? Also, on Hanukkah, we say Hallel, as opposed to Purim.
Full Hallel, right?
There's no Hallel on Purim.
It was in Israel. With Purim, it was in Tusar.
Okay, that's Nachon, but nevertheless, we have to see maybe a little deeper. What's the reasons for these differences, which are based on to understand the events that we are commemorating for these holidays. So the Maral starts the book with this overview of history. The Maral, the perspective that he teaches to seeing the deeper vision, the bigger vision, the collective, holistic vision. As we talked about, it's the vision of Eretz Yisrael, Torah Eretz Yisrael, the uniqueness that the rabbis talk about. That he starts off with the prophecies from Daniel in chapter 7 about the 4 kingdoms. But before we get to that, he also brings down afterwards how the second verse in the Torah, the earth, how does it say? The earth was desolate and turmoil, and there was darkness upon the face of the abyss, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the water. Right? The second verse in the Torah. And the rabbis on that, the Maral brings down the rabbis, the Midrash, a few places that this is referring to 4 kingdoms. Tohu, this void, desolate, is Bavel, the Babylonian exile. Bohu is turmoil. That refers to Madai, the reference to Haman. And they bring down a verse why Haman was brought in a state of great turmoil. They bring a verse how each one refers to. But we'll see the depths of the connection of not just play on words, but how each kingdom has a special aspect that is hinted at, referred to in this verse with desolate, turmoil, darkness, and upon the face of the abyss. Darkness is Yavan, the Greek, the Hellenistic, what we're celebrating, the victory over that Greek kingdom. And Al Pnei Tehom, over this great void, empty, this abyss, that is the kingdom of Edom, the final kingdom, the Roman kingdom, the Christian, Esav, and then the Ruach Elokim Merachefet. Then the Spirit of God hovers over the waters. That's the Spirit of the Mashiach, the rabbis say. And then it says, Vayomer Elokim Dahi Or. Then they let there be light. So in other words, this historical process that the Rabbi says is referring to in the first and second verse of the Torah is already this future vision of all of history, of the four kingdoms that will be coming to negate the kingdom of Israel, and ultimately the Messianic kingdom, and let there be light. And the light isn't just the creation of the physical light, but that's the goal of creation. This white, this light, the goal of creation is the recognition of the light of God, the truth, this absolute goodness of the oneness of all, that we'll try to elaborate on a little bit. So that's again, this whole history is, in a nutshell, so to speak, and concentrated in these in the second verse of the Torah. Actually, in the first verse also, the Vilna Gaon has how all the 7,000 years of history are in the seven words of the first verse of the Torah. Breshit bara Elokim haaretz, it's 7,000 years. If you know how to read it, he says it's all written there. Actually, he says before that, he says all of history is written in the first 25 verses of Torah. And then the roots of all that, the roots of history, the roots of the super, the DNA, is in the first, to the first verse, the 1,000 years. And ultimately, the roots of the roots are in that letter, Bet. The letter Bet, if you know how to read, understand the DNA, whatever, that's all of history. But here the Maharal and the rabbis are talking about the second verse, how also all of history is the goal, ultimately, of the light, the oneness, the connection of all of creation to the divine ideal, to living this absolute, the divine infusion of goodness, of holiness to all. That is, let there be light. But till we get to that light, we go through these four empires, these four kingdoms. And that is what the Maharal elaborates, that the hint at this phenomenon, that the world is not complete, is not perfect all right away. God purposely created the world incomplete in order that man should come and complete it, bring it to fruition. As part of this divine ideal of goodness that the Ramchal talks about in the beginning of Derech Hashem and Dat Funot, how dealing with and overcoming, dealing with challenges and overcoming, that man has to, the world is not complete, not perfect, and we have to work to complete. It says, we say in Kiddush, in the verse in the Torah, on the sixth, that when man was created, to continue the world, to continue to complete creation. But this lack of perfection is this deficiency, so to speak, in godliness that is not revealed all. The Maharal explains that deficiency is revealed in four directions. In other words, the oneness, the goal, the ideal, this light is I'll read his words, centrality and oneness, like the centrality of all, is one. There's only one center of the circle, right? There's one center, a lot of points around the circle, the circumference. That which deviates from the one, this lack of perfection, in the two-dimensional world, it's four. Like we describe things like you're scattered over the four corners of the earth. That's total dispersion, right? You have this the center, and total dispersion, we call that in the four directions. Also, so that's hinted at what the Gemara says in Menachot, page 29, that it says this world was created with the letter Hey, and the world to come with the letter Yud. God's name, Yud K, right? There's a B'yah Shem Tulamim, that God created the world. B'yah, we say that verse, Yud K, that the full name is Yud K, Vav K, but there's this verse that talks about the Yud K. That's the world is created. What does that mean? Created with the Yud and the Hey. The Hey, or let's say the Yud, is that center point that it's almost what does he call it? The smallest. It holds no place whatsoever. It's it cannot be divided. That represents God's oneness and indivisibility. For it is a minute letter which cannot be divided or broken. That teaches of His oneness. The Hey is made up of a Dalet. Is made up of the Dalet and Yud. Right? There's a Dalet. Like you draw a Hey. You have if you can see here. So the Dalet is the four. Is this four? This as if God, not godliness, that which seems to oppose, that seems to not reveal the oneness of God. Multiplicity, the world that we live in. The world that we live, Olam Hazeh, is created with the Hey. There's four, but inside that four, there's a Yud. In other words, the world is not really multiplicity. It's not really totally dispersion and going into the universes are expanding to nothing. But rather, there's this one. This one that is ultimately at the source of all. Everything emanates from that one and return to that one. Although God created the world such that there seems to be this multiplicity, in order to reveal the oneness that comes out of the multiplicity. That there seems that which going against God, that to seeing that there's evil, there's suffering, there's all that has a purpose. That God created evil, it says in Yeshayahu, right? That it has a temporary function, not like good, it's eternal. Evil has a temporary, it's a dangerous concept, but the rabbis speak about the Ramchal, you should, the knowing heart. How the temporary function is, on a simple level, is that which challenges the good, makes it come to use its strength, to find new strength, and to become even stronger by the dealing with and overcoming the opposite forces. Like an opponent, like if you have a competition and you go to the, baseball team, basketball team, they go out and there's no one there. And he's declared the champion by default. But the whole point is the greatness, the scope of his strength, of his quality, of his how good that team is. That really champion is that they overcome the strong team, a team that seemed to be so strong and the best team, and they overcame them. That shows the scope and the extent and the greatness of that team. God's oneness is not just one when there's nothing else. The oneness that seems to be that which opposes, that which is a competition, or that which is, challenges him, so to speak, this oneness. And that ultimately revealed that all that dalit, all that multiplicity is ultimately revealed that it's all the hand of God. Ein od milvado, there's nothing outside. And that's the greater level of oneness that could not have been achieved had it not had the opposing force. There's, like I said, a champion that's declared a champion without any opposition. But the greatness of that champion, the greatness of that oneness, the extent of that oneness is having this world of multiplicity, this seemingly forces of evil. And this, he says, is revealed, this four is four. That which deviates from oneness is related to four, corresponding to the four directions which extend outward and deviate. And these empires, this is revealed through these empires, not just mystical terms of four forces. They're revealed through four kingdoms that come to nullify, to negate the kingdom of God, which is revealed through the kingdom of Israel. As he writes here, the four empires, I'm just reading the Maharal in English, the Ner Mitzvah, I thought you should read it, you should get the book. It's very... the four empires, the illegitimate inheritors of Israel's royal power, nullify the honor of the Holy One in his lower world. Because Israel, only Israel, the unique nation, was created for the sole purpose of making the oneness of Hashem evident. And he brings the verse that we bring down a lot. Amzu yatzarti li tilati yiseperu. Right? Yeshayahu 43:21. This nation have I created unto me to say my praise. There's this vehicle that God created to bring to this world that connects this world of multiplicity, variety, of distinctions, to connect it all, to plug in all the forces of life to the divine energy source of all, the infinite source of all. And that's the oneness of God that gives life and meaning and purpose, all of it, all to all branches of existence. That we thought they were independent. They thought they lived on their own, the physical world. We see it's here. But no, the truth is it'll be revealed that all of that, even the forces that seem to be against, were ultimately part of this bigger plan to reveal the higher hand. That's revealed through the kingdom of Israel. The living nation of Israel to be a kingdom of priests and holy nation that we talk about throughout the year. But that the Maharal talks about here, even gives the hints of like the Maharal does in numerologies, you can call it. Am zu yitzarti li. Zu, Zayin Vav, is what's the gematria?
Zayin is 10, and then Vav.
Zayin is what?
Zayin is 7, Vav is 4, 6.
So what is that? 7 and 6 is? 7 and 6?
13.
So he says there's 13 tribes, because we include Manasseh and Ephraim. And he says that is this one nation. I've created this one nation that reveals this oneness in the world. Literally, there's a force in this world that unifies, this conductor of all of the orchestra, the symphony, all the instruments of the world. The whole point of the world is to reveal that oneness, that goodness, that holiness, that truth in all of existence. It's not some mystical term. The reality of goodness in this world, that holiness is livable, is practical, is real, is revealed through this nation that lives this holiness and the planet. And connects all and brings all, right? And then from Zion will go out Torah, the word of God from Shalayim, they'll beat their swords into plowshares, Yeshayahu chapter 2. That's the reality that Am Yisrael is coming and approaching right very soon to this, connecting all of the world to this blessing. Right? It says to Avraham Avinu, all the fathers, "V'nivrachu b'cha kol mishpat adam," all the nations will be blessed through you. What's the blessing? That they'll be connected, they plugged into this infinite source of goodness. But nevertheless, the Zu is the 13. But Zu also is the gematria of the word one. What's the word one? Echad, which is 13, which is based on built 3 letters, Aleph, Chet, and Dalet. Even that, the Maharal explains, is referring to the nation of Israel. He says how the first Aleph refers to the tribe of Levi. Levi is this. You're Levi? No. The Levi is this, as we'll see later, this what he calls the Nivdal, the transcending tribe. That's the Kohanim, the special, unique. So they're the Aleph, they're distinct. And then there's the 8. The 8 are the children of Rachel and Leah. And then the Daled, the 4, those are the 4 children of the maidservants. So we have the Echad, the 13 tribes of Israel, really one, divided into like each of the categories, but they're all one nation. Right? There's Kohanim, Yisrael, Levim, there's different distinctions, but it's all like one body with different limbs and different functions. But they're all Echad. However, the 4 empires, he says, nullify the oneness of the Holy One in the world by usurping the dominion from Israel, who evidence his oneness. They bring down this oneness of the world. They bring down this connection of this godliness to this world, this infusion of good, of holiness to all. And these forces try to hold it up. And we'll see how each one of these 4 forces, these 4 kingdoms, are revealed in very historical realities that try to usurp the power of Israel, the kingdom of Israel, from bringing that blessing to all of mankind, not just for us. They're against the Jews. They're holding up the blessing to all of mankind, all of creation. But these 4 kingdoms that try to take away the power from Israel and overcome, have 4 distinct methods of doing so, of taking away that power. The first kingdom of Bavel, how do they try to quench the light of Israel, to disconnect the Jewish people from manifesting godliness in this world? By simply taking them out of the land of Israel. Exile in and of itself. Not to kill the Jews, not to butcher them, whatever, no. Take the Jews away from the land. Like I mentioned, there's this, godliness is revealed like 2 pieces of metal that conduct godliness. Right? There's superconductors today. There's metal conducts, right? Electricity. 2 pieces of metal. Plastic and metal doesn't conduct. Jews in New York, non-Jews in Israel don't conduct. They're good people, they're righteous. But that's the way God created the world. This is the vehicle, the conduit, which enables the flow of godliness, of this blessing, of this good, of this connectivity, of oneness of all through the Jewish people and of Israel. Take the Jews out of the land, and you've prevented that light from coming. That was the first method of preventing this godliness from coming to the world. Like it says in the Gemara in Chagigah, page 5b, we'll learn this in the sources, but how the Jews in exile, you have no greater loss of Torah than this. What do you mean bitul Torah? This is in the Talmud Bavli, that we learn. The Talmud Bavli is Torah. The Talmud Bavli says, Jews outside of Israel, you have no greater bitul Torah than that. What do you mean bitul Torah? Jews have learned Torah 2,000 years. The Talmud Bavli written. But again, we'll discuss this at length, but the Torah, the light, is not the individual learning of Torah, the books you can read and learn outside of Israel. But the Torah is not just, it's Torah as the divine ideal, let's call it this light, this energy that comes to the world through that conduit of the Jews in the land of Israel. Take the Jews out of Israel, that is no longer the light of God. You have no greater cancellation of the bigger Torah, the full Torah, the divine ideal from being expressed. So too we mentioned, like in Yechezkel 36, right? The Jews in exile are likened to, what's it called? Take you out of the land and you desecrate my holy name. It's Chilul Hashem. What do you mean Chilul Hashem? Jews, religious Jews, rabbis. But the desecration of my big name, it says, right? My big name, my Shmi HaGadol, Shmi HaKadosh, my holy name, the big name. Every mitzvah you do outside is also a mitzvah, although the rabbis talk about it. It says a rehearsal for the real thing, that it shouldn't be nudity when you come back. But nevertheless, every mitzvah is a Kiddush Hashem, sanctify God's name, brings down. But here we're talking about the big light, the full light, to be a kingdom of priests and holy nation that shows all of mankind that a nation, a full nation, can, in all of its national existence and commerce and industry and everything, all the functions, it's all holy. That is only in Eretz Yisrael. That's why also in Yechezkel 37, right, the dry bones prophecy, the Galut is likened to I said, I'll open up your graves and bring you back to the land of Israel. Right there, it's the graveyard. What do you mean the graveyard? Jews are living. But again, it's the graveyard for the national identity, the national essence that cannot come to its expression when you're outside the land. So Bavel, the first method, take the Jews out of the land, Let them live. Let them live. They have even religious. They had yeshivot. But not in the land. And that is the first way to hold up this light. The second kingdom had another way. Madai, Persian, the Haman. What was their method to get rid of the light of Israel? What? Get rid of the Jews. Get rid of those that bear the light, and you'll have no light. In other words, those that bring down this name of God, destroy them, right? Destroy every man, woman, and child. That's the end. Physical destruction. Then we get to Yavan, commemorating the holiday, the victory over this kingdom. The Greek kingdom. What was their method? They also killed the Jews. But the main thing wasn't so much the killing, the Hellenism, what was the culture, the spiritual destruction. They let them, even the Torah, they respected it, put it on the shelves, whatever. It's like philosophy, but it's human. There's nothing beyond. There's no divine. There's no miracle. There's nothing beyond it. What you see is what you get. That's just the world. The whole world is the man's intellect, or even the body as it is, the sport, the different aspects of the Roman, the Greek. But there's nothing beyond. So even the Torah, you can keep learning Torah. You can, but they said, to try. We say in Al Nisim, to get us to go against they denied the laws of God, being as laws of God. If it's human things, human wisdom, that we can learn. We can discuss philosophy, Socrates and Plato, and then Moshe Rabbeinu maybe. But what we say in Al Chanukah, Al Nisim, that they tried to hashkicham Toratecha, to try to forget the Torah, that is Torah as God, your God. To the laws of your laws, right? They couldn't take the idea that there is something beyond human wisdom, human intellect. And the fourth kingdom, what was their method? All together in quantity, greater in quantity and quality. 2,000 years. That's why it looks like the abyss, this long, endless pit. There's no end. It doesn't seem 100 years, 500. The other kingdoms, Babel, 70 years, whatever. We'll see the Roman, 200 years of the Greek, but 2,000 years of this kingdom of all the different methods, and in greater extent, and at the end even more. Right, the latest, from the Holocaust, the total physical destruction, the Russian kingdom to try to get rid of the culture. They let the Jews live. They killed the Jews also, but the culture, to take away, not to learn Jewish history, the language, the prayer, all these different things to deny any spiritual identification with the Jewish people. That is this fourth kingdom. And like the rabbis say, the chitzai, what's the verse? Chitzai achaleba, I will I'll end my, in Hazinu, in Dvarim, I will end my arrows with them. And the rabbis say, it sounds like a bad thing, but no, my arrows will end, the punishments, the decrees against them, the afflictions, the opponents, the enemies that will try to destroy them will end, but they will not end. In other words, there's no end to the Jewish people. So even though they try at the end, totally, he says, like the last stand, towards the end, there's even a greater attempt, like I said, to destroy physically, spiritually, also from Israel, when the Jews, after the Holocaust, or during the Holocaust, right, the Americans, they said there's no room for the Jews, they have quotas, they can't let all the Jews that were escaping, they're from the St. Louis, the famous boat that was coming out of Germany, from Germany. Anyway, escaped, they tried to escape before the Holocaust. In 1930, I wrote it down here, May 39, the St. Louis, the famous boat with all these, and they passed Florida, whatever, going to Cuba. And no, they didn't let them go before they went back, and that was America. There's no room for people to save their lives. And also England, right, the white paper and all the different things, and they also refused to let the Jews come and to settle here. They forbade the Aliyah. And in spite of all that, and with all that, in other words, it revealed the bigger truth that Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker, that the eternity of Israel is unbeatable. In other words, this eternity of Israel, right? I brought down the famous quote of Mark Twain. You all know the quote from the book of Concerning the Jews, an article called Concerning the Jews. You don't know the quote? So I'll read it to you a little bit.
I'm not sure which quote it is.
Right, there's a lot of quotes. If the statistics are right, the Jews constitute but 1% of the human race. It suggests a nebulous dim puff of stardust, lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. We're nothing. What are we? Tiny. Properly, a Jew ought hardly be heard of, but he is heard of, and always has been heard of. He is as prominent on the planet as any other people, and his commercial importance is extravagantly out of proportion to the smallness of his bulk. His contribution to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, finance, medicine, abstruse learning are also way out of proportion to the weakness of his numbers. He has made a marvelous fight in this world, in all the ages, and has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. Now listen, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Persian arose, right? These two empires that we mentioned. Egyptians was the roots, but the Babylonian and the Persian, the first two kingdoms, filled the planet with sound and splendor. They're strong. They overcame us. They beat the Jewish people, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman, right? The second, the third, and the fourth kingdoms that we just mentioned, right? The rabbis talk about. Here, Mark Twain, these four empires. The Greeks and the Roman followed. They made a vast noise, and they're gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now, or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All of their forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? That's what we'll talk about a little bit now. That's Hanukkah. What is the secret? How is it that this nation deals with, goes through these four empires, these attempts to totally destroy, physically, spiritually, and we come back. The rabbis say, Rav Druckmann brought a midrash in Tehillim, in Shochar, the midrash on Tehillim, chapter 2. Lama Rakshu Goyim, why the nations are raising up their voices to go against the Jewish people, to destroy us, to wipe our memories out from history. They're likened to Kiyam Nigra, they're like waves. These giant waves come onto the seashore, and they're about to capture the sea, capture the soil. And they come about, they're like to capture the, Yabesha, the continent, right? The water will now like take over. This giant wave is coming. What does it do? Ultimately, it comes down and bows down to the little grains of sand on the seashore. Another wave comes and says, no, I'm not like him. The first one succumbed, was big, and then fell. I'm not going to be like him. I know how to beat the Jews, whatever. This another wave comes, and again, ultimately, Mishtachaveh, he comes and succumbs to these little grains of sand on the shore. And so too, the nations come. They're like these waves that come and go. But from all of that is revealed, expressed more, like the extent of the eternity of Israel, the greatness of Israel, the greatness of God's hand, of his name, of his truth that comes through the Jewish people. It's not our individual private strength and power. It's godly infused that he made this nation, this vehicle that will express this eternity in this world. How? The question is how.
What was that from?
Which? The Midrash Tehillim, Shochar Tov on the Tehillim in chapter 2. Also in Yeshayahu, Yalkut Shimoni, Yeshayahu 490. But in Shochar Tov, there's a Midrash on Tehillim. Because the whole chapter there is talking about Gog and Magog and the Mashiach of Am Yisrael, whatever, like they're coming to destroy you, the nation, the Pshat. The rabbis say they're likened to these waves that come and bow down. Getting to answer our original question, though, before we answer Mark Twain's question, the Greeks, as we said, their unique method, so to speak, was to conquer the Jewish culture, the Torah culture. There's nothing beyond the human, beyond the natural. This world, what you see, man's intellect or the physical aspect of man, this is what there is. That's why they made the Gzerah against Brit Milah, against circumcision, like you guys said. The body, the way it is. This is the world, this is what there is, there's nothing more, nothing beyond. So they came to quench the unique light of the house of Israel. And therefore the commemoration, is we brought down, the Gemara says, Ner Ishu Beito. The commandment is to commemorate the continuation of this light of the household, not the individual. The house, the light that Israel comes to bring to the world, each household, the house of Israel, so too each house lights this light. As opposed to Purim, their attempt was Haman, was to destroy every physical, each man, woman, and child. Therefore, the miracle or the success, the victory over that kingdom is to every man, woman, and child to show that here we're still alive. We're still here. The physical body. Therefore each individual has the commandment, and therefore the commemoration is also in the physical sense of eating, of drinking, the festivity. See, the body. You wanted to destroy the bodies. Our bodies are still here. We're still eating and drinking, as opposed to Hanukkah. The more the spiritual, we have the Hallel, the spiritual commemoration. So, what is indeed this the secret of the eternity of the Jewish people? The Gemara says, also on page 21 there, what is Hanukkah? You have it here. What is Hanukkah? It says the Greeks came into the temple, and on the 25th day of the month of Kislev, the days of Hanukkah commence. When Yavan entered the sanctuary of the temple, the Hechal, they contaminated all the oil. And then the royal house of Hashmonaim, the king, the Kohanim, overpowered and conquered Yavan. This is all the Gemara. It searched and found only one flask of uncontaminated oil, upon which the seal of the high priest remained intact. There was only enough oil to last for one day. However, the miracle occurred, and the oil lasted for 8 days. The next year, these days were established as a festival of Hallel and Thanksgiving. That's the holiday of Hanukkah. So the holiday is based on the Gemara here, this miracle of the oil, this flask that was found. The Maral goes into every detail here, explaining this miracle, this victory. What's the root of the victory, so to speak, and what's the essence? I'll read you a few of the details to give you an example, a taste of... Because again, we said this Greek philosophy there's nothing beyond. Human wisdom alone, not the divine and not the nivdal. What do you call the Maral calls the nivdal, the transcending, that which is beyond the world of nature. The divine, the yud, that inner hidden divinity that's behind the world, the source of all, the oneness of all. There's not this guy. He explained that God's oneness isn't that there's one God and there's the rest of the world. There's only one God. But the world isn't multiple. The world is one, and all of the extensions, that God is the source of all. It's not like a quantitative, like there's one as opposed to 3 gods or 4 gods. That God is separate from, or there's one God and the rest of the world. But all of the world is just, he's the source of the root, you could say, of all of existence. All that exists is only out of, like the Rambam says, is Bamitahi Matzo, from his existence. All that exists is an extension of, so to speak. It's like, I think Rabbi Meir, someone gave an example, a metaphor of like, used to be the movies. They would have a projector and the lights would go on the screen. Like the film would go here between the light, and then you see but the minute you stop the light, there's no existence. It's not like it continues going on. The body just dies. Without that light, without that divine creating the world continuously, then there's no world. It's like stop the light. There's nothing there. It all goes to nothingness. Every existence, every moment is by this continuing. God gives the source of all and the blessing to all, what He wants to give it, to infuse and bestow good upon all. But the Yavan, this Greek philosophy, there's nothing beyond. And the miracle was, in all the aspects of the miracle, was to show this, not just the downfall of their kingdom, but this philosophy, this wisdom, all the miracles, the very miracle of the oil. There's a law of the conservation of, one of the laws of thermodynamics, the conservation of energy. They have a certain amount of oil, it lasts for a certain amount of time. But here there was ex nihilo, right? Yesh me'ayin. There was energy created from nothing. This flask that should last for 1 day, it lasted for 8 days. Which is, again, belonging beyond the laws of nature. And he explains how why 8 days? Because 8 is also, in the Maral, right? Others that explain, the 8 is beyond nature. There's the 6 days of the physical, the 7th day, like on Shabbat, but the 7 days of creation. And then there's that which is beyond creation, beyond this world, the roots of what he calls the Nivdal, beyond. And so he shows how also in the book of Tehillim, like the longest chapter 119, is the Aleph Bet, right? Is the letters. It's every chapter, there's 8 sentences, verses with letter Aleph, then 8 verses with the letter Bet. You have from Aleph on top, all the 22 letters of the alphabet, and 8 times each one. Because here the whole chapter is talking about the grandeur of Torah, And therefore he says that the Aleph Bet is 8 times. Each letter, 8 times. Because 8 is that which represents Torah. That's the transcending level beyond the divine, beyond this world. That's not from within this world that lasts a long time. But it's eternal because it's not subordinate to the world. It doesn't start from this world. It starts from the world beyond this world and comes into this world, as we said, to raise this world beyond this world. It connects up to this world to something beyond. But the beyond is the Torah. And that's why it says the menorah. The menorah in the temple, which represent that unified, that divine oneness. And that's why the miracle was in the menorah. But the 8 days, he says that the 8th is also in Tehillim in chapter 19. We say in the morning on Shabbat, Hashemayim Mesaprim K'vod Hashem. The heavens clearly. There's 7 verses that talk about the glory of nature, all the beauty of the world and nature in His words. The work of His hands are retold by the firmament and the heavens, everything proceeding. And then the 8th verse starts talking about Torah. The Torah of God is perfect. Torah Hashem Temimah Mishav Nefesh. In other words, the 8th is the 7 the levels of nature, the natural world, and then there's the 8th is always the beyond. So in His words, the first 7 verses of the Psalm describing the splendor and sophistication of the natural world correspond to the 7 days of creation during which nature was created. The 8th verse corresponds to that which is beyond nature, the Torah. That's why we also have the 7 weeks, the Sfirat Omer. We count from leaving Pesach, from leaving Egypt. The 7 weeks we count the Sfirat Omer, and then the day after that, the 50th, after 7 times 7 days, is Shavuot, the receiving of the Torah. That's the level of Torah. He also says that's why the Brit Milah, as you know, the body, it's physical, everything, but it's not perfect, it's not complete. The completion is when you add the 8th level. 7 days pass, in the natural order, he's born uncircumcised. The order of the mitzvah of circumcision is above nature. That's why it's on the 8th day. And then he gets to the flask of oil itself, that the flask was found in the Heichal. They defiled all the oils in the Heichal. The Heichal, the number equivalent in the gematria of Heichal, Hey Yud Chaf Lamed, is 65. Yavan, Yud Vav Nun, is what? Yud is 10, Vav is 6, Nun 50. Is 66.
Yeah.
So therefore, he says they had the power. You can see 66 is more than 65. They had the power to contaminate. Their culture, their ideas, their philosophy infiltrated, and the majority of the Jews were going after the Hellenists. Right? The Hashmonaim, this kingdom, the few priests, Kohanim family, were the minority. They had the power, therefore, to usurp the power of Israel. They had the power to defile all the oils. The oil represents the wisdom, as you know in the Torah. The wisdom, they had the power, they overcame. Their number, so to speak, was above the number of Israel. However, they found the flask of who? The Kohen Gadol. Kohen is Gematria 20 and 75, which is above Yavan. They have the power to overcome Yavan. And he says that is maybe in his words, the level of the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKodeshim, that's that Nivdah level, above nature. In this merit alone is man able to enter such a... The ark, which contained the Torah, was also kept in the Holy of Holies. The Torah is completely intellectual in the Nivdah level. But he says that's the Kohen, the 75, represents this. He explains even more, I don't want to go into all the details, how it's this level of beyond. The Holy of Holies is the transcending level, beyond space and time. It's the bridge between space and beyond space. Also, the holiday took place on what day? What was the victory, the great day that we celebrate to begin Hanukkah? The 25th of Kislev. 25, he explains, was actually the 25th of Kislev is when the light starts to increase. I don't know if it's what's called the equinox, whatever, that the nights start to get shorter, right? The light starts to increase. But light was created on the 25th of Elul. Man was created on the 1st of Tishrei, but he was in the 6th day of creation. Before that, light, the first day, light was created. Light was created on the 1st day of creation, 5 days before. That's the 25th of Elul. So 25 also relates to the creation of light. And then he talks about light, and also the footnotes here. Light is a very spiritual concept, is the most abstract of the physical components.
It's shorter sunlight, isn't it? The daytime shorter.
Okay.
It's the shortest.
Now it starts getting longer. Light starts to increase. That's what he says here. The 25th of Kislev, that's the day that light of the world begins to begin increase. Not only, practically, but the point is here.
The winter solstice is exactly.
Okay. So this is when, in other words, it's not just by chance. This is when the light starts to increase, the above, the transcending light that starts to enter the world. And light was created. Light is also a very spiritual concept, like I said, in modern physics. There's footnotes here of the translator of modern physics and then quantum physics, whatever, that used to think that matter was fixed, and for now they realize that light is more it's constant. That's why light is gematria of Raz. It's very secret. It's the most spiritual of the physical, what does he call it? The most abstract of the physical components of the world. It's an article, right? It's a machlokit. Einstein and Bohr know whether light is a particle or a wave. It's very abstract, so to speak. But nevertheless, it was created on the 25th. So all these things are indicative of this aspect of the victory of the Jewish people that emanate from what? What is the answer to Mark Twain, in other words? That they couldn't get to this level of the Holy of Holies, not just physically, geographically. They couldn't enter. In other words, the flask that they couldn't contaminate, their culture could get to a certain level. You can defile, you can convince a lot of the Jews, and your culture seems to be modern, progressive, postmodern. It's great. Wow, look at how wise, and everyone was so dazzled by the Greek, the philosophy, etc. But that only goes to a certain level, but the root level, the neshama level, the inner level, the skula, the inner divine level of the Jewish people, that not is a function of our understanding, of our making, of our doing, but this divine creation, that is what is nivda, what he calls the transcending level, the divine level, and that they couldn't reach. And that's why this flask, that they couldn't contaminate that oil. And from there emanates this whole explosion of energy. In other words, the resurgence. You see, the Jewish people, these few people, the few tribes, the Kohen Gadol, the Kohanim of the Maccabim, the Hashmonaim, they had that light, they had this power that has the power to rekindle all renew. You can destroy all the branches upon the surface, but the underneath level that remains, this nivda level, the root level, this divine level remains intact, and that will ultimately continue. And like we said, that's the secret of our immortality, that we go against all the laws of nature. Other philosophers talk about in Sartre and Will Durant, the historian, how the history of the Jewish people is not according to the laws of nature, because it's not called the laws of nature, because we don't start from this world of nature. We start from this nivda level, the divine level, and come into this world, like I said, to raise this world beyond this world. But that's the miracle of Hanukkah, to reveal that from that flask, that tiny flask that has the power to light above logic. In other words, okay, you're a few people. How can you beat the Greek kingdom and all the culture that the Jews even accepted? But that power, that little light that seemingly could only last for one day, lasts for 8 days. Explode. What's the word? Mitlahev, and then illuminates and replenishes and ignites. The light of Israel comes back, and that's what we commemorate in the lighting the house of Israel. In each home, we commemorate that light, and that's why we have to know today that even those that are still the final attempt to quench the light of Israel, what's going on today, these battles you see clearly of who is evil and who is good. In other words, what values the enemy is of destruction, of the total degradation, of no value of life, of a meaning of life, of just to destroy and to kill and to murder and but in such evil ways. And this is the final battle, hopefully, we'll see, towards of good against evil. And the victory is guaranteed. We have to know with a lot of patience, because it's not overnight, because God wants it to come through us, through the seemingly what natural means. And now he wants it to come, like I said, he could have created the world perfect right away. But the whole point is that you deal with that which is opposite, and that brings out the bigger strength, that clarifies who you are and what you are, what is the content of that goodness. Like I said, the scope, the extent of that, by having that opposition, and how finally this final thing of, you see the world is now polarized of good and evil. And this, to be clear of this, the end of after the four kingdoms, the spirit of the Mashiach hovers over that, and then Vayior, there will be light. So we have to be clear and understand and learn more. The whole thing of Hanukkah is to be more understand the content of what we're bringing to the world, what is the value of our existence and presence and possession of the land of Israel, what blessing it is to bring to the world, And to be sure of that, how do you say, the tzidkat yarkenu, the justice of our being here, to be sure of that, what's coming out. You see here that the Jews are waking up when they threaten the neshama. It causes, like I said, evil wakes up the good to be even better, to come out and to reveal itself, and that's what will be shown soon, B'ezrat Hashem, in bigger strength and purity. B'ezrat Hashem, in the final, hopefully these days coming up will be a continuation of that light of Hanukkah to be penetrate and permeate all, and find the Geulah Shlema b'Imra b'Yameinu. Amen.